Well, here we are. It's Friday again. It's let's see, the date is May 20th, 2022, and this is, of course, our weekly look back at last week's auction results in the Asian art market around the world from what's been going, see what's going on, talk about some prices, talk about a couple of amazing sales that took place this past week, a couple of fabulous sales that are coming up, and all the usual stuff. So let's get started. One of the things I wanted to mention was we'll start with the global page users because they keep growing, we keep them up to date. We did an auction result video on the global member pages this week on some of the stuff that went on at Drew Eats and some other sales that did awfully well. We did sort of a deep dive into it, and we're going to talk a little bit about it here and mention today quickly a couple of things that are coming up that you'll be seeing on those that you'll see on the global pages if you're using them. Let's get started. Okay, first thing I wanted to mention before we get into it too much, we've added some more catalogs to the upcoming sales, and a particularly interesting one that we found on Southeast Asian pottery that we posted that's quite good. But of course, the Christie's sale coming up in Hong Kong, the important Chinese ceramics works of art, and the Celestial Brilliance, the Wang Jinglu collection it's coming up in let's see, when is it? About 12 days from now, 10 days from now, over in Hong Kong. And we were hoping to do a video on it this week, but we had some technical issues and we couldn't do it. But it's been resolved, and we'll get it out in the next day or two, or hopefully on Monday anyway. The catalog I wanted to mention, though, those of you who are interested in Southeast Asian ceramics and things that are from the Philippines that turn up there, from the Chinese export markets, Malaysia, that kind of thing. There's a fellow I've been talking to in the Philippines who's been buying things, and we've been doing a lot of looking at this kind of material. And I dug this catalog out, this PDF on this subject, and have posted it. And if you're interested in this kind of work, early pottery and so forth for the export market of Southeast Asia, what you're likely to find there. This is a pretty good little catalog. It's nicely done, well illustrated, and of course everything enlarges so you can read the material and whatnot and get a good look at the objects. All right, so it's a pretty good brochure, a small exhibition catalog, I guess is how you define it. The next thing is up here is the Agouts sale that's coming up in a few weeks time, and this is just one of the things that caught my eye. I just thought it was absolutely fabulous with a ridiculously low estimate. You'll find this on the Invaluable page, the link to it over on the global pages. Is this absolutely wonderful sort of rich, deep apricot. It's one of my favorite colors. If you haven't noticed by the website, we use this color a lot. I think it's a very wonderful color. And this beautiful, looks like a throne seat cover or something, but superb quality, just absolutely superb, brilliant condition with a ridiculous estimate of 500 to 700 euros. Should bring $4,000 to $5,000, but we'll see. But some of the other things in this sale that are coming up, this is Agouts in France. It's in the Neuilly-sur-Seine area, which is this very rich neighborhood in Paris. I think it's the richest neighborhood in Paris outside of maybe the Six Arrondissements or something. But at any rate, they've gotten a hold of a fabulous collection, and we're going to do a deep dive into it on the global page video this coming week. Some of the pictures haven't loaded up all the way. Some of them have. They're a little bit slow to get started. And there they go. And they've got a great monochrome collection. Kangxi biscuit wares, as you can see here, there's a ton of it. And some other great things in addition to that silk textile that we just looked at. And this is a good sale. This is a really good sale. And if you're using the global pages, check this place out. You might have some opportunities over there, okay, especially if you're in Europe and you can get to the sale physically and participate. All right. The other things I wanted to talk about too was, let's see here. it back to this section here. Let the page load. The Druids in Donington had their sale over in the UK this week. And the results were unbelievable, and we talked about it on the global video. We're going to go through it real quickly here to show you what was happening over there. They had a 2-day sale. The second part, I think, is going on today, but it's not nearly, let's see here. Oh, no, it's done. Okay, it already ran through. It was yesterday. The first part was on Wednesday. That's what it was. And everything did great. Everything did great. The robes did fabulously well. Everything did really, really well. But there were a couple of fascinating lots in the sale that I think almost went under the radar. One of them was this, an incredibly fine and very, 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 very rare pair of urns in the European form, done in China trade, with European figures in enamel. These are incredibly rare, and they're based on an English form that was devised during the period and then mimicked by the Chinese. And this here they are. These were estimated for some reason. I remember looking at them saying, well, that estimate is ridiculous. 400 to 600 pounds. Obviously, they were extremely rare, 18th century, and they ended up selling for $17,337. So I don't know who dated them. They're probably Qianlong. They dated them as Qianlong or Jiajing. I think they're probably Qianlong given the form and style, but it's a little bit in the air, and it's based on a Dewsbury Derby porcelain prototype. They were just fantastic. They were, real rarities. And they had this. You may remember the Jim Dixon sale at Skinner's a couple weeks ago had one of these very similar, but not quite as good as this one. Silk Up. The one at Skinner's was a really great one. This is a superb one. And I hadn't seen it prior to the Skinner sale. Otherwise, I would have mentioned it then, too, as a second option. But this one has an extremely elaborate outer section that frames it all the way around with this rolling wave pattern and flowers and all this other business. Lots of gold work in the ground. And then the three immortals at the top. These are maybe three of one of the group of immortals. I haven't looked up to see which ones they are. And this was a great thing. And the detailed shot they provided of it was excellent. And you can see that the quality of this one was really, really over the top. And in the end, it sold for 14,000 pounds or $17,000. And to give you an idea how much differently it was viewed than the one from the Dixon sale, here's the Dixon example. Quite similar on a gold ground. It's very well developed. The images of the immortals inside the woven area are very, very good, no doubt about it. But not as good as the other. Not as good as this one. This one was just one of the best ones I've ever seen, actually. Really, really great example from, I don't know what, did they say where it came from? No, but a similar palace, the Shao symbols and so forth are found in the Imperial Palace. Yeah, I'm not surprised. Any rate, the one at Skinner's, this one sold for $17,000. The one at Skinner's sold for $1,600. So the difference in the quality, though they look very, very similar, the difference in the quality of the two, that even at that higher range, when you have a very, very good example and then you have a superb example a little better than it, the price went up exponentially by 10 times. And I'm pretty sure that the people who saw the one in Boston sell were waiting for this one as well. And the result was fantastic. The other thing I wanted to mention was that within the sale was this. This, I think, was one of the niftiest buys of the day. If you're a Japanese pottery buyer, went for just $211. It was this wonderful Kiyoyaki pottery vase with enamels all over it, Meiji period. Absolutely wonderful looking pot. I talked about it a couple weeks ago. I thought it was a great piece of pottery. Beautifully done. Nice size. It was around, 10 inches tall or something? 23 centimeters. So it was a little under 10. What is that? That works out to what? About 9 inches roughly 9 inches tall. $211. That was a steal. That was an absolute steal if you're a Japanese pottery buyer and you missed that. I'm sorry. That was a great buy. And I thought it would have brought more than that. I was thinking it would bring $700 or $800. So, but then again, estimates are hard to make. So it's the way it goes. And then you have this incredibly Xuantong mark and period Hu form vase with a great story behind it. This was a gift from Puyi. They have the documents. They had the documents for it. And as you probably many of you know, Xuantong mark and period examples are not non-existent, but darn close to it. It's one of the rarest of all legitimate marks out there. It was copied a lot, but genuine Xuantong mark porcelains are fantastically rare. They're rarer than Qinlong examples. They're rarer than Yongchen examples. They're rarer than any other Qing. It's the rarest of all the Qing porcelains. Not necessarily the most valuable of all Qing porcelains, but the rarest mark of all Qing porcelains, including Kangxi marks. All right, and this was a Xuantong example. Here's the bottom of it. Well, it looks like they've provided absolutely great photographs. If you're interested in this kind of thing, save these photos. All right, get over to Live Auctioneers or the Druid site or somewhere, and take the copies down of these pictures, because they will be really great if you ever come across another one, because they are very rare, and very often mark and period Xuantong pieces are just instantly dismissed as being fakes. That's because there are so few of them actually made. But this one was given to a fellow and his wife who helped put out the fire at the Imperial Garden in the 1920s by Puyi. And there's a letter that goes with it and a bunch of other things, and we talked about it on the global videos. But it's a wonderful story. And as you know, Guangzhou examples in this glaze, which are much more common, sell for less than half of this price typically, or a third of this price typically, for a really great example. And this one sold for $180,000. All right, so it'll show you the power, even though it's a later piece of porcelain. It shows you the power of the rarity of the mark, and also the fabulous story that went behind it. Just absolutely great story. And then finally we get to the big gun, which was the famous Qinlong cobalt ground vase with gilt and silver decorated birds on it, of these red-headed herons. This was an incredibly rare vase. It's one of the prettiest vases I've seen in the last couple of years. I thought this thing just absolutely knocked me right out. I just couldn't believe how well done it was. Handsome piece of pottery and or porcelain, and it ended up selling for $1.8 million all in. The hammer's price was 1.2 million pounds plus the buyer's premium, which added on another 25%. So it came out to about $1.8 million and a half dollars. Now, the estimate was very low, 100 to 150,000 pounds, and I don't think it was I think that Druids merely used that as a way to transmit to potential buyers that the reserve is under 100,000 pounds. And when you have something that everybody knows I had commented on it before the sale, and I thought it would bring at least $1 million or 800,000 at the very least. And Druids knew this, obviously, I assume, because they're a pretty savvy bunch over there. And the thing just blew away that low estimate, which encouraged a lot of activity, because the reserve can't be above the low estimate. So the reserve on this thing was somewhere around 90, at the most was around 99,000 pounds, and or 100,000 pounds. And there you are. So it ended up doing extremely well. It was a very, very rare form, and I can't think of another one. This was the thing. When I saw this, I couldn't think of another one I'd seen that had this combination of colors, the use of silver gilt and gold gilt with these cranes ascending through it. I thought it was just an absolutely brilliant use of these colors, and the cobalt ground on this vase was phenomenal. Just warm, rich, perfectly balanced. And so there it goes. All right. And it was pretty interesting to see. So anyway, we'll be doing a look at the Agut sale and talk a bit about that. I think there's maybe some opportunities there, even though it's in France and it's a pain in the neck to ship from there. Goots is a very good auction house. They've been around for many, many years, and I think it'll be worthwhile. I think there'll be some. The thing with buying overseas, if you're in the U.S. or if you're buying from a distance from an auction house, is always calculate on a piece of paper. Write down what the total is you're willing to spend, all in. All right. It doesn't matter if part of it's buyer premium, part of it's for this, part of it's for shipping, part of it's for handling. You have to calculate all those things, and the amount you spend should be no more than the amount you would spend otherwise if you were there to pick the thing up physically. All right. But you have to calculate in all those expenses first. And sometimes it's easy not to do that. So you say, well, it's worth $2,000. I'll leave a $2,000 bid on it. But you don't take into account it's going to cost. That $2,000 item is going to cost $200 or $300 to ship. You're going to have $250 in buyer's premiums. You might have some other fees attached to it, and suddenly that $2,000 purchase is $2,700, and that upsets people. People get discouraged and so forth. Well, don't bid that much, okay? Bid $1,400. If you think it's worth $2,000 to you, everybody that's bidding will, other than maybe some people that live in the neighborhood of the auction hall, are all doing the same calculus. So if a bunch of people decide, that one person says, I don't want to spend more than $1,800, I don't want to spend more than $1,900, and so forth, you can sort of calculate your way into it and get yourself a good buy, and whatever it costs, but you've already built it into the transaction. So build in your expenses first, and then go from there. And if you don't get it, you don't get it. That's all there is to it. Okay. Let's see what else is happening. Oh, eBay. eBay had some interesting results. Just a couple of weeks ago, I said there was less and less stuff on there, and this past week, a whole bunch of material appeared that looked very good. And we're going to go right through them and talk about some of the results because they did awfully well. One of the vases I had in the newsletter page last week was this pink-handled double happiness vase with these characters all over it right here, the wedding double happiness symbols. Very, very attractive. Nice pink handles, unusual format to the handle. It's sort of done in an archaistic pattern. It's got the turquoise green liner that you see on these. This vase was made during the second half of the 19th century, probably close to the end of it. Nice Famille Jaune upper border to sort of highlight the whole thing. It was 18 inches tall, and it brought $1,113, which I think was a pretty good buy. I don't think that's a crazy price. That's a big vase, and overall it looked like it was in very, very good condition. All right, and then on to this, the Mandarin pattern dish. With these lines on the back. Somebody actually texted me or sent me a message wanting to know through the inquiry program what they wanted to know what these lines were, and from what I'm seeing, they were discoloration left behind by somebody having a plate rack attached to the back of this thing for a long time, and it ended up leaving a little bit of stains. Those generally will wash right out. But here's the plate. It was very, very big. It was 34 centimeters, 13 inches in diameter. Nice big plate. Beautiful quality decoration. Beautiful Mandarin decoration. And ended up selling for over $1,000. One of the things I wanted to mention was a lot of the inquiries we get are about that often are reproductions of Mandarin, rose medallion, rose canton porcelains, because they made a lot of them in the 1980s, especially, and they did a lot of replications. They did a lot of replications of 18th century export wares as well. But this plate was a really fine example, and if you're interested in that period, save these images, because we're often when I do the replies on people who do inquiries about objects, I often talk about the faces and how the heads are drawn, because it's one of the quickest, easiest ways. Once you learn how faces and the heads should look for this period, once you understand the way they're done, you can instantly tell if a plate is a copy or not. You can pretty much instantly, because they don't do them today in the same manner. So save these images of these faces like this. Again, one of the best things you can do for yourself when you're trying to learn about stuff is to save up, create image archives and be organized about it, and have pictures of verified, good-looking examples to which you can go back. All right, and this is one of them. This is a very fine 19th century example, and it sold for $1,526, which is a pretty amazing price. But punch bowls and other examples of Mandarin wares, 19th century wares in this quality, that's what they sell for. So it's good to know. Slightly less quality, and the price drops right down to about $400, $500 for one of these. But at this level, that's what they bring. So study these plates. It's really useful. And then we have this, the Kisi rank badge. This is a nice one. Ended up selling for $569. It wasn't quite as elaborate as some we've seen, but it was still a very nice example overall. The sun, for example, wasn't done with coral beads, which they often are, and that kind of thing. But this was a very nice framed example. And I think it went for a fair price. This sold a few days ago up in, this is a Canadian seller in Ontario, what is it, British Columbia had this. It was a good looking thing. And then this. Now this plate I think is up again. This sold last week. Here it is. It sold for, what did it go for? It ended up going for $237, and I think we saw it again come up again just a couple of days ago. So what that means is somebody didn't pay their bill. All right, here's the back of it. It's clearly a 19th century example, probably just slightly after the mid 19th century. It has this vase form arrangement with flowers and insects and whatnot all over it. Completely done in a gold ground, which is really amazing. If you look at it carefully, you'll see that the gold ground fills the entire background of the plate, other than for where the vase is. All right, it's a pretty unusual plate, and I don't think $237 was a bad price for it. I think it was a pretty good price, even though this wasn't a huge piece. It was unusually decorated. I think this was what, about 9 inches in diameter? Yeah, 9 inches in diameter, pretty standard size, but unusual. Gold ground completely. You don't see those too often. And then you have this, the coral red gilt and overglazed blue enamel decorated bowls. These have been up twice, and I don't know why they didn't get paid for the first time. They sold for around $3,000 the last time they were up, and now they're back up, and they brought $2,850 once again. And I hope this guy gets his money this time. These were good bowls. They were superb color, good condition, and you got a pair for $2,800. I think that was a really good buy. I thought it was a good buy at $3,000 because I wouldn't have been at all surprised if they sold for $6,000 or $7,000. But that's what they brought. So there you are. That's the price. All right, and then you had this one of these Wu Shuang Ping, Wu Shuang Pu hat stands, sold for $3,630. All right, the interest in these pieces is just amazing. It has not waned. A few years ago, when these prices started to go up for these things, that people began to heavily collect them. I remember saying, "Wow, they've really gotten popular." And I thought the popularity might wane a little bit, like Bitcoin, might come down a bit, and it hasn't. These have remained very resilient in their pricing, and this was a nice one. This was a nice example, a very well decorated, good color, nice small detail. Always check the small details. Like when they show robes, are they showing the damask work that would be on them? Or the extra needlework that would be on them from depicting bats and characters and symbols and that sort of thing. You want to always check that. If they don't have that, then it's not quite as good. It's not quite. They didn't take the time. This one had a few nips out of the rim, as you can see, but in the end, it didn't make much difference. And the thing ended up going for, as I said, $3,630. That's a pretty good price, no matter how you cut it. And then on to this, this really nice Guangzhou marked Daotsai enamel dish. We talked a bit about this one last week because I had gotten inquiries about it, and is it Guangzhou? Is it not Guangzhou? Is it out of period? And somebody said, well, it can't be Guangzhou because it has a mark on it. Well, that's true to some degree, and it's not true. All right, because it has the China mark on it. The China marks were required for bowls that could potentially be exported after 1895. The Guangzhou period ended in 1912. The thing that's interesting about it is that Guangzhou mark and period bowls were typically not made for export. They were domestic wares. And for some reason, this one got the mark on it. Now, it's for one of two reasons. Either it was at the end of the Guangxu period, and somebody decided they were going to export it. It was done in superb manner, really superb decoration all the way around, nicely potted, beautiful enamel coloring. So maybe at the time it was made, somebody at the kiln said, "We're going to export this piece. We're going to put the stamp on it." Or maybe it was done just after the end of the period, and was made for export then, and they decided to do it, but with the export marking on it, the country of origin. All right, because you didn't have to put country of origin on things that weren't planned to be exported. So my view on this was it's a really fine example, and was probably made by by people who worked and did the imperial examples, and may have made this just after the period ended, because it has the China mark on it. And as I said, they weren't typically made for export, but the quality was there. And there's the price, $15,100. Now, this was a big plate. It was 14 inches in diameter, which made it quite unusual. Really made it quite unusual. And we've seen other examples of Guangxu and slightly later plates that are big and superbly decorated, bringing this much money and more. There was a plate that I'm trying to think. It was about 16 inches in diameter and iron red, from this roughly the same period, and I think 50,000 a few years ago. So there you go. But anyway, it was a great result. I thought it was a wonderful looking piece of porcelain. And then you had this very nice, pretty well-known pattern, 18th century tureen with an old staple repair in it, no less, okay? Down at the bottom there, to shore it up. And it still brought $437 because it's a good pattern. It's a popular pattern. And another seller had the platter. That went. This is not the same seller, but again, this almost identical pattern of these giant flowers for export, 18th century, around 1780 or 90, and ended up selling for $231 for the platter. All right, so there you go. And it's sort of interesting that there were two separate sellers had the same pattern dish, porcelain, up right next to each other in the on the weekly newsletter page. And this platter was 15 inches long, just in case you pay attention to the size. That's pretty standard size for one of those. And then onto this was this nice looking 32 by 6 foot long silk embroidery with double dragons on each end, and then the waves and so forth. Nicely done. And this ended up doing what was it, $860, right? $865. So again, the price of silks, there's still a lot of interest in silks. There's a lot of good silk on the market, and keep that up. If you're on the global pages and you like silk, check out the Mandarin, the rank badge sale that's going on. It's coming up. There's about 24 really great looking rank badges, just as a heads up. All right, and then the slip-decorated Mei-ping vase in cobalt with white bats and clouds. This was a very unusual vase. It's not very early. It has a Kangxi mark, but the vase dates to the late Qing dynasty. And, the Kangxi marks were rarely done in 4 characters. It's something to know right away. So if you see a 4-character Kangxi mark, you can pretty much always assume that it was from the end of the Qing dynasty. Or later. I mean, they still use them to this day, but they rarely used them in the period. And here's this vase, nice looking decoration. I like the shading of the blue, where it goes from very dark to lighter and so forth. I thought this was just a nice looking thing. And it ended up selling for $1,080, which is fine. That's an absolutely fine price. And if you like this and you missed it, and you were wondering, go try to find another one. You look around, you're going to look a long time to find this vase in that style. And to me, that makes it interesting. That's just how I look at things. If I haven't seen it before, I'm fascinated by it, because I've been thinking, where have these been all my life? All right. And now over to what's coming up on the newsletter page, the regular Bidamount newsletter page this week. Is this? This is Jagar Libet. I never know how to pronounce his name. Jagar was it JG Arts Limited, I guess is what he goes by, is this nice looking late Qing jade Kuan Yin. This is a very sweet example, very sweetly done. Nice looking facial features, very good details up and down the back of it. Look at the face. The hair is beautifully done and so forth. It's probably late Qing. It could conceivably be Republic. I don't think it's any newer than that in the carving. Of course, all jade is the same age. It just matters when they got it out of the ground and carved it. Here it is. It's a good way to display it. You really can see it. All the details. It has a very attractive presence to it. And it's up to it closes in 3 days. It has $33 worth of bids on it. I don't understand that at all, and I don't know. I suspect this thing is going to end up selling for around $1,500 to $2,500, somewhere in there. So let's see what happens tomorrow. It ends on Monday, but I'm going to bet on Saturday and Sunday it starts to get some activity and jump up quite a bit. But everybody, I think, is playing close to the vest with that. And then Joni's up in Canada, has a couple of nice-looking vases up. This one is a good-looking 19th century one, and it's an example where they have all of the locations on the map, on the thing. All the different buildings are identified with characters. Where they are, and this is some sort of a view. It looks to be of the Imperial Gardens or perhaps the Summer Palace, but nicely done, very nicely done. You have people out, and you have bright blossoming flowers, and you've got this little water basin area here. See the curling waves with little boats on them and so forth. Just wonderfully done. There's a slight orange peel to the glaze, so we know that this thing was made in the 19th century, the way it looks. Probably mid-19th century, something like that. Let's see if they included a picture of the base. Okay, first half of the 19th century, from what I'm seeing. With that base most often appears then. The paste looks good. So, probably Guangxu period, or Daoguan period, rather. All right, now they also have this a Wushuang Pu vase. Now we just saw what the hat stand brought. All right, well this is a vase, and looks to be a very similar quality. I assume it's of about the same vintage age, because those hat stands all tend to be second half of the 19th century. And I just want to see the base of this one. See a nice looking quality, good detail. Yeah, same general period, second half of the 19th century. How tall is this thing? Let me see here. There it is, 21 inches tall. This thing is going to do very well, I suspect. I suspect it's going to go for around 5,000. Yeah, it should bring $4,000 or $5,000 anyway, and it could bring more. All right, so there you go. Nice looking thing, but these are turning up as the prices rise of things. It's always interesting to me how they flush examples out of the closets and pieces turn up. I remember years ago there was a table that was sold at an American table. It's not a Chinese thing, but it was a good example. Sold at Christie's. It was a pie crust top table. And it ended up selling for about $1.4 million because it was the only type of American table that anybody had seen on the market. They were very rare. There are only a handful thought to exist, and they did this whole write-up about how rare they are, and it brought $1.4 million. And within 6 months of that sale, or a year of that sale, 4 more of those tables turned up on the market. It just flushed them out because everybody said, "Hey, I've got that table." And it was sort of interesting to watch because the next ones didn't bring anywhere near 1.4 million. But here you have a case where the sources seem to be out there, and they're gonna do well. And then you have this. This is a nice looking little rank badge, and this one has the very fine blind stitch rendering of the sun, and these endless knot characters and all this. It's got some pulls to it, and I like the fact that the seller didn't try to hide them. They're all right there. You get some pulling. Frankly, what I do with them, if they can't easily be fixed and put back in place, which often they can't, cut them and try to tie off the ends so they don't further deteriorate, and call it a day. All right. But there it is. But a person who's good with needlework, if you know somebody who's good at needlework and sewing, they can often tidy these up pretty well with the loose threads so that they're not nearly as obvious. All right. And then over to this nice looking Kangxi plate. And it's got this very unusual sort of boule red, underglazed red and blue border. But the color of the red is very, very good. This is a nice looking little dish. It's got one bid. It's up to $9. It's got eight days to go. This is a seller in Texas that has this. And let me see if we can't get a better shot of the back of it. All right. There it is. Nice looking Kangxi back with the lingbai, the fungus on the back there. And the shape of the dish is very similar to the way a lot of Japanese plates were later made, which is sort of interesting to me. I find that they adopted this, and you see, when I first saw the back of this, I said, geez, it almost looks Japanese. But the Japanese didn't copy them in this shape really until a bit later. All right, and then on to this. This is a nice looking little thing. It's Famille Rose. It has a Qinlong mark on it, but it is not Qinlong. It is Qing though, and it is beautiful quality. And in full disclosure, I had the seller here. I didn't know what he was going to do with it. He submitted it to us through the inquiry program because he was wondering what we thought of it. And I told him, I said, I think pretty surely this is a 19th century example, judging by the foot rim and the quality of the paste, the color of the bottom here, this little bits of discoloration in the blue areas, the way the pieces, the symmetry of the top of the piece, the way the enamels are applied, the shading of it, and all this. It's just a nifty little piece. And it could be late Qing or possibly Republic, but I don't really. Not so sure about that because the paste on the bottom looks so late Qing to me, but very rare form, very, very rare form. If you've been watching these videos for any period of time, you know that we don't often feature things like this because 99.9% of the time when we see objects like this, they're copies. And in our opinion, this was not a copy. I was very pleased to see it, and I think it's going to do very well. I think it'll probably bring $3,000 or $4,000 anyway. But I thought it was terrific. I thought it was a really terrific thing. And there you are. You never know what's out there. It's really interesting what turns up. And then a pair of Guangzhou Millefiori lanterns that came up. Here's the bottom of it. It's got a Guangzhou mark on it. It's not Guangzhou though. Okay, this is a little bit later. I'm pretty sure. Probably Republic Night Heron has this, but it's still a very nice pair of lamps, and they should bring $1,400 to $1,800 for the pair pretty comfortably. And then what's the last thing on here is this. We've talked about these before because I love them. I love carvings, as you all know, Chinese carvings in tortoiseshell, rhino horn, ivory, wood, anything. And we've talked about these tortoiseshell boxes before. This is a particularly nice one. It's very finely done. Here's the back of it. It's decorated on both sides. There is an old bit of damage here, but it isn't significant. That doesn't strike me as being terribly disastrous. But it's a beautifully carved piece of tortoiseshell, and cleaned up, this will look fabulous. It will glow. And you remember we showed one, we had a buyer, those of you that have been around for a little while here, remember a while back we had a tortoiseshell box like this, and it was bought by one of our users here, one of our viewers, and he sent me pictures of it, asked if he cleaned it. And the difference was night and day, and because as it was when they were listing it, it was covered with dirt and dust and had all kinds of crud in it. Because these things are dirt magnets. As you can see, everything gets stuck down in there, and you have to be very patient and go through it nicely with a Q-tip, just gently to clean them out. And he went to that extent, and it was so beautiful when he was done. And the same thing will happen to this. All right, this is another good example, and it is being sold in the UK. And of course, you have the export problem. So if you're someplace outside of the UK, if you're in the US, you want to be mindful of restrictions on shipping these cross borders and so forth. You don't want to run afoul of the law, though these things get shipped around the world all the time like it's nothing. So anyway, that's about it. So there's been a lot going on. We're going to do the video preview. Hopefully, now that we got the technology problem squared away, we'll be doing the video on the Christie sales that are coming up in Hong Kong. And we're going to do a deep dive into that Agut sale over on the global member page videos because there's so much to look at. It's crazy. And it's a really interesting looking sale. And one of the things about overseas sales, again, I meant to mention this before, when you're looking at those, if there are a lot of things, like the cost of shipping one small thing is, let's say, for example, $150, but shipping 5 small things in the same box doesn't add a heck of a lot to the price. Maybe adds another $100 for 5. So the more you spend on these sales, the cheaper the shipping gets proportionately, if these aren't large objects and they don't require crating and all this other business. But if they're small porcelains, things under 5 or 6 inches tall, getting them shipped around many pieces can work out to be fairly economical. So keep that in mind. That's all. You want to get things for your collection. I understand, but you also want to do it, sort of planning it out in advance from a business standpoint, so you're not getting stuck with huge bills. Okay, so that's about it. Have a wonderful weekend. Subscribe here if you haven't so far. We like to see the new subscribers come in. We like to read the comments every week, and check out the newsletter page over on Bidamount.com and see what we end up putting in there for this week's sale. And those of you on the global user pages, we've had a big surge of users lately. It's really interesting because I think part of it is that it's $1 a week to do it, to join it, and you get to see so much more stuff than you get to see just from eBay each week. That's all. You get to see literally 50 times the amount of material, 100 times the amount of material, and some really great examples. All right, and that's what it's all about. Okay, have a great weekend, and get your flowers in and so forth. We're still struggling here. It was 50 degrees and rainy today. I can't believe it. Anyway, but summer will come back. All right. Thanks for watching. Bye-bye.